Well, hello, free people of the Rocky Mountain region. This is Brandon from freestatecolorado.com, and I hope you're surviving this election season. Nonstop TV ads for congressional districts that you don't even vote in, mail and mail and mail in your mailbox, campaign material everywhere, people coming to your door, text messages, phone calls. It is nonstop. It is a crazy election year, and I really want to talk about some controversial stuff that I don't think is getting enough attention. There's some very important information about these statewide ballot measures that not a lot of people know about. So that's what I want to talk to you about today. Let's get started here with Proposition 131. Proposition 131 is extremely controversial. I think it should probably be a bigger story than it is. The people behind it, the agenda behind it, and what it's really about. So just this last week, I talked to Carl Honegger, a really good guy there, talking about Proposition 131, really the open primary component of the measure. I won't get into the basics on Proposition 131. Check out my ballot guide at freestatecolorado.com if you're interested in that. But I really want to talk about the bigger picture about what's going on here. So, about 3 years ago, believe it or not, Carl Honegger and Sarah Harrison sent an article for a guest post here on Free State Colorado. Let's pull it up here. So I'm on freestatecolorado.com, searching blueprint, and there it is. So this is September 2021, nearly 3 years, just over 3 years ago. 18,000 views on this article. It got a lot of attention at the time, but what they're really talking about applies to exactly what's happening today. Very, very interesting stuff. I kind of talked about it from an angle of a financial connection of the Colorado political class in my small introduction here, but you got to go through and read it and really understand what they're calling the Blueprint 2.0. This gives you a lot of background on how Colorado was transformed into a Democratic controlled government, and this plans for another group of people to come in, really well-moneyed, rich people coming into Colorado to change how our political system works, to change how our politics operates, right? Pretty interesting stuff. I want to skip ahead here on the article. So, part of it is this thing called the Centrist Project. The Centrist Manifesto, Charles Whelan, back in 2014. Nick Troiano, first employee back then. In 2018, they called themselves Unite America. Now, Unite America is something you may have seen here in some recent news articles, but this is really the genesis of Unite America and this push that we're seeing here in Colorado. So, Carl and Sarah go through the background here. Very interesting stuff. They focused on a proof of concept for what they wanted to accomplish in Congress. So in August 2020 or 2018, they held a national summit in Denver to earn press for their strategy of trying to get independent candidates elected to state legislators. So I don't know if you remember this, but there was a lot of these centrist kind of candidates that we saw running under this Unite Colorado label a long time ago over the last 6 years, really. So pretty interesting stuff. That was their initial strategy, and it failed. But their goal here is really to have moderate people elected to Congress. They want to change who represents Colorado, who represents all these other states across the country. It's really interesting to see how they're trying to accomplish this goal. So, they failed back then. However, they kept going at it, and we're seeing the fruits of that today with Proposition 131. So interestingly enough, Catherine Murdoch is one of the big funders here, president of Quadrivium, which funds Unite America, one of the funding sources for it. So she's got a lot of money. She decided to get involved in politics after seeing Al Gore talk at the 21st Century Retreat in 2006. She was the director of strategy and communications for the Clinton Climate Initiative. So you can really get an idea there. She co-founded Quadrivium with her husband, who's the son of Rupert Murdoch. So people hear Murdoch, they think Rupert Murdoch, they think Fox News, they think of conservatism. Really not the case with Catherine Murdoch. She's very environmentally minded and some other aspects as well that a lot of Coloradans might not necessarily agree with. So she's pushing this climate agenda through the years. And then she started spending some of this money here in Colorado. So you can read through this article to get a lot more details, but nonetheless, you have to understand that push has been going on for over a decade, really, to really try and create this Proposition 131 here in Colorado. So I think this was really important here. Unlike in 2018, Unite Colorado was able to get each Colorado candidate they chose elected to office in 2020. They figured out that the open Republican primary in Colorado was the key to their plan for the state legislature. The one thing Unite America couldn't predict was that Lauren Boebert would win not only her Republican primary, but also the general election. Boebert was one of just 5 Republican challengers for Congress who defeated an incumbent in a primary election. So you can see, as you know, Kent Theory and his little group there is was behind the open primaries we saw here in Colorado. This article goes in how by playing into Republican Party primaries, these people were able to get their candidates into these Republican districts and get them elected. But, they do not like Lauren Boebert. They don't like people on the political spectrum who maybe are resistant to the idea of what the government has become, right? So, nonetheless, they go through here very interesting stuff. You can read through all of this. Um, but Unite America basically put this plan together to create what we see today here in Proposition 131. So that's the background. Definitely check that out. You're going to become a political expert just by reading this. It's over at Free State Colorado, just.com. Just search for the Blueprint 2.0. You'll see it there. Let's go back here to what Carl talked about this last week. So here we are 3 years later. This groundwork has been laid. We're seeing lots and lots of money being set up to create the infrastructure for open primaries. And now ranked choice voting in this final four, all candidate open primary we're seeing. So Carl really digs into the details in our video that we just put out, but I want to jump over to a slide deck. So he put these slides together. Of course, we have Colorado, Proposition 131, Nevada, Idaho, Arizona, and I believe that's another state there, South Dakota. Nonetheless, you can see it all across the country here. So, I mean, this is the bigger story, right? Proposition 131 is not this organic creation of liberty-minded people who want to try and change how Colorado's elections are done. They are part of a nationwide group that's been acting behind the scenes for a decade to change our political system to their liking. Now, people should be really resistant to that idea, I think. Who are these people? What is their agenda? For all of this money to be spent by these people who maybe have goals contrary to that of the common person, to come in and really spend big, big money to transform our country. I mean, they did it in Alaska. Alaskan voters are voting on getting rid of this ranked choice voting system this year. And as you see, Arizona, Nevada, Idaho, Montana, South Dakota, and Colorado, all this year. I mean, this is a huge network of people with lots and lots of money all coming in to change our politics. Now, what do those states have in common, right? Well, you got to think, there's maybe some people in South Dakota, Montana, Idaho, maybe a little bit more conservative, maybe pro-liberty, I would hope, who these people, these Catherine Murdoch types and these Kant Theory types, maybe don't like. They don't want extreme pro-liberty people serving in the legislature and Congress, right? They want to have people who are more moderate, who are going to toe the line, who aren't going to challenge the status quo. At least that's my opinion. Maybe there's other agendas at play, but nonetheless, I think Colorado voters should be extremely skeptical of what we're seeing here with Proposition 131. So, to make a long story short, it's a nationwide ploy that's been a decade in the making to fundamentally transform politics across the country. And when you see the states they're going after, they're going after people like they want to make sure Lauren Boebert never gets elected again. They want to be able to push extreme environmental, quote unquote, regulations on industries. And they want to create this new class of politicians that they can kind of help guide into office, for lack of a better word. This Denver Post article just came out this week as well. Interesting stuff about all the money being spent here in Colorado on these ballot measures. $25 million spent on Colorado ballot measures. And of course, Proposition 131 is right at the top of the list. So crazy stuff. Let's scroll down here to the Proposition 131 portion of it. The largest fundraising haul belongs to the backers of Prop 131, which would open Colorado's primaries with a single initial contest instead of party primaries, and then institute ranked choice voting in the general election, with the top 4 primary finishers competing. It would apply across a suite of races at the state and federal level, including governor, state board of education, and congressional and state house seats. Now, it's really that congressional piece, as we've seen, looking back 3 years ago, that these big moneyed people are trying to really change. They want to change who's in Congress. They want to change the laws. They want to protect their interests, possibly at the expense of other people, right? That campaign has drawn sizable contributions from a relatively small number of donors, with an official fundraising total reported at $10.7 million. But that figure doesn't include more than 1.3 million in major contributions disclosed last week in separate filings. Backers include Kent Theory, the Denver-based CEO of dialysis giant DaVita, who's driving the effort and has donated more than $1.4 million, and Unite America, a group Theory co-chairs that's supporting similar ballot measures elsewhere. So, people, it's really important, I think, to understand who Unite America is, what's this background, what's their goal with trying to accomplish this. It's just not being talked about enough. Other funders include Jeff Chambers, a Californian who works in private equity, and Ross Jones of Berkshire Partners, each of whom has given $321,685. In addition to past donations from Reed Hastings of Netflix, who is a Kamala mega donor, Ben Walton of the Walmart founding family, who does donate more to the liberal causes than you might expect. The campaign has added a $50,000 donation from Denver's Larry Mizell. If you know who Larry Mizell is, he's always been trying to temper or moderate Republican Party politics. He doesn't see this extreme pro-freedom, what he'd call pro-freedom candidates extreme, I would suppose. It's kind of my thought process there. Mega donor to former President Donald Trump, who's hosted two fundraisers for the Republican presidential ticket in recent months, and $100,000 from Kimball Musk, a Colorado restaurateur and the brother of Elon Musk, another Trump mega donor. So, really, no matter what you believe, on what side of the political aisle you're on, whether you're a Democrat, Republican, Libertarian, Independent, anybody out there, I think you should have serious concerns about millions of dollars flooding into Colorado to change our election systems. These people have big plans for what they want to accomplish with who Colorado sends to Congress, the Senate, and who we elect as our governor. I think we should be really resistant to that idea that there's this big money push from out of state trying to change our elections, right? I mean, it seems obvious when you talk about it that way, at least I think. So there you go. Voters for the American Center, a dark money group based in Washington, D.C., gave just under $500,000 to the campaign last week. The group, which registered in Colorado last month, shares an address and personnel with Longwell Partners, a communications firm that's launched Republican groups opposing Trump. So you can kind of see who these people behind the organization is here. Crazy stuff. I think people really need to resist Proposition 131. It's going to be extremely difficult for Colorado elections in the future if this does pass. We're going to see people who are going to have trouble voting. I think we're going to see less voter turnout. We're going to see a lot more gamesmanship, more money coming in, more manipulation of our political system. I mean, this is what they're trying to accomplish. People really need to watch that. So, nonetheless, check it out. For more information, look at the Libertarian Guide to Colorado's 2024 ballot measures. Just scrolling down to the 131 part, there's a little bit more detail here about where this money is coming from and what it's all about. So check that out for sure. Very interesting stuff. But just looking at that data, let me blow that up for you here. Let's open that up here. Here's some of those fundraising money coming through. Unite America. Now this was back a couple weeks ago, so this is outdated, but nonetheless, $1 million. Ben Walton, Catherine Murdoch, Reed Hastings, Robert Small, John Carroll, Brad Feld. I mean, all these people from Brentwood, Missouri, Hingham, Massachusetts, Boston, Massachusetts, Santa Cruz, California, New York, New York. That's where a lot of this money's coming from. It's not necessarily coming here from Colorado. So check that out. Very, very interesting stuff. Highly recommend a no vote on that, specifically for the all candidate open primary portion. But nonetheless, I hope people are skeptical of this idea of this out of state money flooding our state to really try and change our politics. So that's the first one I want to talk about. That's probably one of the biggest issues here in Colorado. This election cycle that's so intricate and nuanced that most people just don't know all the details about it as much as we maybe think we do. I'm still learning new stuff every day, specifically about who's supporting it and where this money's coming from. What are these plans these people have? Very interesting stuff. But check that out. freestatecolorado.com will have all the links, of course. The other issue I want to talk about this week, really one of the biggest controversies we're seeing this year, is this pro abortion initiative, Amendment 79. Now, why is this controversial, right? Colorado is probably the most pro abortion state in the country. People can have abortions up until the moment of birth, basically, as was pointed out here on X recently. So, there's this guy, Seth Dillon, here, posted on October 19th, so just a couple days ago. Elon Musk responded. Of course, anytime Elon Musk responds to something on X, it's going to get a massive, massive amount of reach. People are going to be talking about this, seeing this information. So 75 million views, 75 million people saw Elon Musk ask, did Colorado really legalize abortion up to 9 months? The answer is yes. Of course, it's absolutely wild. And I really wanted to point out here where this money's coming from for this year for Amendment 79. Another situation where we're seeing massive out-of-state money come into our state for purposes that are nefarious, if you ask me. So I said, to make matters worse, big money is flowing into Colorado this year to eliminate the ban on taxpayer-funded abortions. So we have the Open Society Policy Center, which of course is George Soros's group, $1 million to Colorado for Amendment 79. $750,000 from Bloomberg. Wow, Michael Bloomberg in New York trying to control what's happening here in Colorado. $500,000 from Shusterman. That's this Lynn Shusterman, and believe it or not, she's part of the Rothschild family. Then millions and millions more in dark money. So I mean, it's like people really need to understand um, who is supporting these things, where this money is coming from, and what's that agenda. Now, I did want to say there was a really interesting point made earlier today by the New Republican account, which is a good friend here. He says the significant financial investment in Colorado's abortion initiative appears to be more focused on ensuring high voter turnout among liberal Democratic supporters in the burbs. Many voters who are upset with the DNC would have left the ballot on the counter. Now, that's a great point, right? I mean, abortion is really the only issue the Democrats have to run on. It's the biggest thing they're trying to use in their political campaigns. I mean, I don't know how many ads, flyers, commercials, everything you've seen where it's all about abortion, abortion this, abortion that. But people really need to understand taxpayer-funded abortions is probably a step too far for most people, and that's something people should be really concerned about. But additionally, um, it's part of this bigger issue that people need to be aware of big money coming in from out of state. What right do these people have to come into Colorado and tell us how we should run our state, really? So interesting stuff there. I did a little bit of a deep dive into Amendment 79 on freestatecolorado.com for the ballot guide because I think there's some controversy there about where this money's coming from, who's behind it, and I think if people really saw that, it might make them question what's actually happening here. So check that out. Additionally, some weird connections with some taxpayer money possibly flowing to some of these groups connected to Amendment 79. But most people are not talking about this last part of Amendment 79, which is to repeal that section of the state constitution, which prohibits taxpayer funded of abortions. So that's what this initiative is about. And it's the only issue that these Democratic candidates are really running on because there's not a lot of other issues out there that that are something they can really be proud of, right? Some interesting stuff here. Let's look at that Amendment 79 here on this Denver Post article. So Kent Theory also donated $100,000 for Amendment 79. They've reported raising 6.3 million and spending just under $6 million in all. So of course we just talked about a lot of these groups, but nonetheless you see Kent Theory also playing politics there. So here we go. Last couple of weeks of the election season. Be aware, I'd say really tell people about what's going on with Amendment 130 or Proposition 131 and Amendment 79. Not as all as it seems for most people. So definitely check that out. But appreciate your time and we'll talk to you soon. Take care.